After Adam and Eve sinned, they had kids. And you know what they did? You guessed it. They sinned. They didn't care about doing what God wanted them to do. They were violent toward each other. They were even killing each other. God's word says that in the days of Adam and Eve's children, every thought of every man was only evil all the time. That's awful. Things were so bad that God regretted He ever made people. You know things are bad when the God who is love doesn't want to be around any of the people He made anymore. He was ready to destroy them all. But there was one good family still in the world, and because God is good, He wouldn't destroy the good with the evil. God really was going to punish the world, but God would use the dad of this family to tell everyone how to not be punished, and his name was Noah. God told Noah to build a boat and to tell everyone to get on it. Well, it was more than a boat, really. It was too big and too important to be called that. So it was called an ark. You see, God was going to send a storm, a really bad storm. Have you ever gone to bed one night with a really bad storm outside? The wind blew hard. It might have even made your house creak and groan. You heard the rain pour on the top of your house like a waterfall. The next morning, you probably saw leaves and tree branches everywhere. Sometimes big storms even knocked trees over. Well, the storm God was sending would be even worse than that. This storm was going to cover the whole world with water, and nothing and no one would live through the storm unless they got on the ark. So Noah got to work. He even had his 3 sons work with him. Their names were Shem, Ham, yes, just like the food, and Japheth. They worked and worked and worked. 100 years later, the ark was finished. I'm not kidding. It took 100 years to build the ark. I told you it was big. And you know what? The whole time Noah was building it, he preached. He told people about how their sin was ugly, how their sin broke God's heart, and how He was getting ready to send a terrible storm to punish them. They needed to obey God. They needed to admit that they were wrong to disobey Him and ask Him to forgive them and save them. They needed to get on the boat. Do you think they listened? Nope. They thought Noah had finally lost his marbles. They thought he was one pancake short of a stack. They thought he was crazy. He was constantly going on and on about water falling from the sky, but you see, it had never rained before, not even once. We've seen it rain, but Noah lived in a time before it had started raining in the world. On top of that, Noah was building a boat in the middle of the desert. Well, it probably didn't start out as a desert, but after using up all the trees on a boat that took 100 years to build, it probably looked like a desert. Anyway, the people couldn't see the storm, so they didn't think they needed a boat. They made fun of Noah and his family, but he kept building because he believed what God said. Finally, after 100 years of building, the ark was completed, and just in time too. Out of nowhere, all these animals started showing up. God had sent them to Noah so they could get on the ark and live through the storm. It was amazing. Shortly after they began arriving, Noah and his family noticed that they were showing up in pairs. One lion showed up, and then another one appeared. One buffalo, and then a second. One dog, and then another. God had sent 2 of every animal, a boy and a girl, so they could have babies and fill the earth with animals again after the storm. God sent even more of some kinds of animals because they would be used for sacrifices after the storm. Noah and his family loaded up all the animals and the food they would eat. Then one day, God told them it was time to go. Noah's family got on the ark, and the Bible says that God himself made sure the door was shut good and tight behind them. Everyone else in the world went on with their lives. They thought there's nothing to worry about. They kept doing business, getting married, having families, and being mean to everyone. Then the sky turned black. Lightning flashed and the thunder cracked. Then the rain started. Everyone's nightmare was coming true. Noah was right. Water poured and poured from the sky, but that wasn't all. As people ran to the ark, they noticed big puddles of water on the ground, but they weren't from the rain. Water was bubbling up from the ground. Later, it actually started bursting out of the ground like giant water fountains. The terrible judgment Noah told everyone about had finally come. No one outside of Noah's family had believed him, so they didn't get on the ark. Now, as they stood in the water that was getting higher and higher all around them, they pounded on the ark with their hands. "Let us in," they screamed. "Please, please let us in." But it was too late. God had already shut the door. Millions of people made fun of Noah's ark. Millions of people refused to listen to Noah's message about God's judgment and his plan to save them with the ark. In the end, 8 people and a bunch of animals got on board, and millions of mean, angry, and now fearful voices were suddenly silenced. You see, sin is disobedience to God, and God must punish our disobedience. However, God still loves us, and he made a rescue plan. You say, yeah, he had Noah build the ark. Well, actually, I was talking about Jesus, but the ark kind of looks like Jesus, doesn't it? God was going to punish sin, but he made a way for people to escape the punishment if they would just trust him and get on the ark. In the same way, God will punish everyone for their sin in a horrible place called hell. However, because of his great love, he made a way to escape the punishment of hell. He sent his Son to be punished for sin in our place. And if we admit our sin to God and believe that Jesus, who is God, completely paid for our sin with his death, burial, and resurrection, we too can escape the judgment for sin. However, just as people in Noah's day couldn't see the storm and therefore didn't see a need to get on the ark, people today can't see how real hell is. So many see no need to ask Jesus to save them from their sin. Sadly, just like the people who frantically banged on the ark and begged to be let in after it was too late, when people face death today, they're often just as afraid because they're not ready. They haven't gotten on the ark. They never believed on Jesus. The howling storm and the pounding rain outside the ark may have been a little scary to the family on the inside, but only a little. Noah and his wife, their sons and their wives had trusted God. They got on the ark, and because of that, they knew they were safe. And just like them, when we call on Jesus, admitting to him that we've disobeyed him, and we place our faith in what he did to take away our sin, we can know that we're safe forever. We have peace. So God has to punish sin. In Noah's day, God literally flooded the whole world because the world was so full of wickedness. But he made a way for people to be spared from that judgment, and that was the ark that he had Noah build. And God made a way for us to be able to be spared from eternal punishment in hell by sending his Son Jesus to pay for our sins. And so today, we're going to go ahead and we're going to be working on this picture of the ark that you just saw. Now, if you like, you can go ahead and you can sketch it out, but there is a link available, and I put it in the description or in the comments so that you can download the sketch that we're starting with, okay? And that'll make things a whole lot easier for you. I recommend if you can print it out on something like construction paper or cardstock, that would probably work a little bit better for you than just plain copier paper, but use what you got and do your best. And one thing I'm going to stress to you, and I'm stressing it to you too, Kate, just follow along with us as closely as possible. I'm going to try to make these instructions as concise as possible. This picture is not going to be super detailed. We're working with pastels here. There are some people who are really good at pastels. I am not as good as some of those people, and so this is not going to be a super detailed work. We're just going to kind of get the color on the paper. We're going to work from top to bottom, because if we lay our hands in our pastels, then we're going to be smudging it all over our papers, and so we don't want that. You're going to need a few supplies here. We've got your pastels, you got your sketch, we've taped down the edges of it, and we've put down a really thick, like probably a little bit more than a 1/2 inch border around the edges of ours. And so that whenever we pull the tape off, there'll be probably a little bit more than a 1/2 inch that'll be nice and clean and white, and let's make that picture pop. But also we've got paper towels here just to wipe our hands off on, okay, because we want to have our fingers smudged from blending. And then also I've got some Q-tips here because these are kind of handy for blending or well, that's just it, blending your pastel work for really detailed spots, okay? So if you got some Q-tips around, you can do that. If not, get you some tissue paper, twist them up real tight to where you have a little point at the end, and you can blend them that way as well. But understand, when you start blending with something besides your finger, it's actually going to pick up the pastel. So you might have to put down a little bit extra after you've blended it just to get the amount of color that you want, okay? Now, I think that's all the instructions I needed to give you there. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by outlining. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get kind of a medium gray. We're going to get this gray that's right in the middle down here between the light gray and the black. So go ahead and grab that one. Yep. And I want you to go ahead and start by outlining the clouds that are on the right side of the page, okay? So go ahead, and you see how it doesn't make it all the way to the very tip top. Just go ahead and just connect it to the top of your paper to where those clouds just kind of build all the way up to the top of the page. You know, whenever you see thunderclouds, you see happy, like Bob Ross said, happy little clouds. The ones that's not about to rain down lightning and rain and hail. They're light and fluffy, maybe even wispy. And we've got some clouds like that that's going to be on the other side of the page. But when you see thunder clouds, it's like they're dark and angry, and they seem to just tower up and up and up. And that's what these clouds are going to be like. So we're going to just outline just the side, just the very edge of these. And only outline the ones that are, just outline just the towering cloud right now, because on the side where the little thin cloud is with the sun, we're going to outline that side over there with blue. And if you get a little bit of gray on there already, it's okay. We're going to make it work. I see how I've done on mine here. I'm not outlining this line right here. I'm just outlining those and that little line there and right there. So you can go ahead and outline, you can do this line here, and then we're done with the dark gray on that part.
Okay, doke.
So now that if you've finished with outlining that gray spot on the side over there, go ahead and grab your real light blue, okay? We're getting this one right here. So it almost is kind of like a periwinkle color, but it's giving us the lightness we want. If we grab anything darker, it's going to look not like a normal sky. So we're going to grab that really light blue, and we're going to go ahead and outline the one long wispy cloud that's just over that big bow fin on the arc. And we're not going to outline the cloud that's near the sun just yet, okay? We're going to kind of leave the area around the sun kind of just without color, so we can go in and just add just a little bit of yellow here and there, because when you look at the sun in the sky, it's just really bright. It's just kind of like just a bright white light. And so we're going to leave it kind of shining brightly like that. If we want, we can always go and add in more color, but it's hard to take color off, okay? You can't take color off, and it's kind of hard to put in a lighter color over a darker color. So just outline the thin wispy cloud with that super light blue. Again, you can get this sketch by going to the link in the description or on the comments, whichever you're viewing this from, whether it's YouTube or Facebook. We're also going to go ahead and outline just the furthest edge of the big clouds with the blue. Because past those clouds, that's where the blue sky is going to start. Again, if you already put some gray there, it's okay. We'll want to make it work, okay?
Sorry, I'm a little behind.
You're fine. You're being very meticulous. I love it. You'll notice mine aren't exactly perfect. So, all right. Now we're going to go back to that first gray that we had, okay? So we're going to get that medium gray, and we're going to start to lay in that color right up against the tape's edge, okay? We're not, as we go, see, if you look on your paper, the sun is our light source. Okay, this is just extra art information for you. When you have a light source, that's the side of, like, when all the objects that are facing that light source, that's where the lightest edge is going to be. And then the side that's away from the light source is going to be darker. So I'm going to go ahead and add in this dark color only about halfway over on these big billowy clouds, the big tall clouds. Okay, I'm just going to add it just in halfway like that. Just halfway. And then, after I've added that color in there, I'm gonna go past the first outline I made over to the next set of clouds, and I'm going to add that color in about halfway over to that one as well. Halfway over to the blue. But remember, we're wanting to leave some white, light white edges on some clouds so that way it can look like the sun is hitting it, okay? You just follow along with us as best you can, and we'll do the best job that we can on this, okay? And learn as we go. Okay, now let's start to blend. And I want to start off with using my finger because it's not a real detailed spot. I'm just gonna use my finger now here's the deal, guys. Before we get started, thank you for kind of showing me on something here. In the sky, we go back and forth, side to side, okay? Not up and down, because whenever you blend it side to side, it makes it look like clouds, okay? You don't ever see clouds moving along the sky like this, okay? They move along the sky like this, okay? So we're gonna blend it side to side so that way, even if it's streaky, it still looks like clouds. So we're blending side to side, always side to side in the sky. That's just kind of Art 101 there. And I'm even blending just a little bit past where I marked. I'm not going too far past it, okay? Just going past it a little bit because the clouds are getting lighter. You notice how whenever you're blending, when you start to blend your color into a place where you didn't mark any color down, it's lighter there, okay? And so it has a nice fading effect, right?
Oh, yeah, I just realized that.
Looks really nice. Yours looks great. Okay, now grab a Q-tip or something real small like your tissue paper that's rolled up, and we're going to go ahead and start blending away from that line over there on that next set of clouds over, okay? What we're trying to do is we're trying not to get the color back on the part that's white that we left white. Okay. Maybe your picture looks a little bit messy right now. It's okay. Embrace the mess. We will tidy it up as we can here in just a little bit, okay? My picture looks a little bit messy too. You'll notice with the Q-tip or with the tissue paper that sometimes it will pick up the pastel color and you might have to put down some more. It's okay. You can always color some more on until you get the darkness that you're looking for, okay? And now once I'm away from that line a little bit, I'm gonna do the same thing I did a second ago. I'm gonna use my fingers to blend it on over further, okay? Because I've got that powder that's still on my paper there. If you need to add more color, you can always add it in there. And again, if it's streaky looking after you've blended it, it's okay. It looks like clouds nonetheless. Make sure you get your color all the way up against the edges of your tape. And you can blend that color on the edge going toward the blue, almost all the way up to the blue. Because those are stormy clouds. Same way over here on these other ones. We're just gonna leave just a little white, that's all. As they say, it's a silver lining on the clouds, not a big silver patch. Silver lining to stark, stormy clouds. See, those look like some pretty angry clouds, don't they?
Mm-hmm. You never see a gray cloud and yet it be happy.
No. But we appreciate gray clouds because they give us lots of rain.
Which is good for crops.
Yep. Spoken like a true social studies student. Okay, so now, here's what I want to do. I'm going to go in, I'm going to add a little bit more of this medium gray. I want to make that back set of clouds, the one that's closest to the tape over here on the right side, I want to make them really dark. So I'm going to add in some more color. Okay? So
basically making them even angrier.
It's right. Really angry clouds. Blending it right all the way up to the edge.
Like poking the bear.
That's it. Only we're rubbing the cloud.
Yep, poke the bear, rub the cloud, same thing basically.
Leaving that little bit of edge, just that little bit of white edge there. And letting it just kind of get lighter as we go over. So we're not blending, we're not coloring the whole thing gray. Yeah, I like that. Doing great.
Thanks.
Okay, ready to go to the next part?
Yes.
Okay, I think you are. So now I want to grab some white. I'm going to grab a white pastel and we're going to go back in and we're going to lay a little bit of white over top of the dark gray and add like just some fluffs here and there. Watch how Kate and I do it and you'll kind of see how that adds even more fluffiness and three-dimensionality to your cloud, okay?
Yes, he's used a lot of his white.
Yeah, see my white color is gone. My poor little white.
I've not used a lot of mine. At least not yet.
And so what I'm doing is I'm just taking my white and I'm just adding in a few lines onto my clouds that where I'm thinking, okay, the sun can kind of catch on those. And I'm just kind of really scrubbing in there. You're starting to see why I have so little white left. Mm-hmm. Scrubbing it in.
Scrub it up a dubba.
And you see how now it looks like there's like just fluffiness to the cloud. I'm gonna add in some more right up here. And it's kind of smeared, I know right now. I'm gonna take another white here in a minute. I'm just gonna make some hard, nice, crisp lines to get that real silver lining we were just talking about.
I accidentally got the shape of what you would do for a nose in a picture.
Oh yeah? Hey,
Yeah.
It works. Sometimes we see things like that in the clouds.
Very true.
Okay, so I'm actually gonna blend that. I made that a little bit too hard. I'm just barely touching the picture with this Q-tip. I don't like how that is so hard looking.
I agree.
And so there's that. Now, make sure you're keeping your fingertips clean. Okay, because whenever you start to blend here in a second, if you've got gray on your finger, when you start to blend the blue sky,
You're gonna have a grayish blue.
a grayish blue sky.
And that's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the edge of a storm, it would be kind of normal. Now, one more thing before we go on to the blue sky. Let's grab this lightest gray, and we're going to color in just below the big pillowy cloud. Okay. Now look real quick though. Right there beside the arc, you can see a thin line going out to the edge of the paper. That's the horizon. Okay. That's the end of the end of the world.
No.
The end of the world. Okay.
Only for the flat Earth believers.
But we're going to go ahead and make that line just like we were outlining our clouds, and then above that, between that line and the cloud, we're just going to go ahead and color in that gray, but don't go past the edge of the cloud, okay? We're just coloring in that gray. And if it touches where you blend, if it touches the cloud above it, that's okay, because we're going to add some dark shading to the bottom of that cloud before we move on. So I want to blend that in. That is my horizon and a gray, stormy sky.
With rain in the back, it looks like.
It does. It looks like it's raining back there. So I'm going to blend that all together. Now, after you've made your gray sky, grab the dark, dark, dark gray, the one right next to the black. And what we're going to do is we're going to take like a corner of it and we're going to draw in the line of the bottom of that cloud again. Don't do this number, okay? Don't do like wavy, big, curly clouds at the bottom, okay? When you look at clouds there where it's a rainstorm from a distance, it looks like the clouds are just sliding across like a glass ceiling.
That you can look at the clouds?
Yep, and so from a distance they just look flat along the bottom. But underneath, that's where the sun's not hitting it, it's going to be really dark. So we're going to just draw in that line along the bottom edge of that cloud to separate the cloud from the sky. And I might make mine just a little bit thicker.
I think I made mine a little thick too.
And we can take our Q-tip and we can blend that just a little bit, just barely touching it really, just blending it up into the cloud a little bit.
Like what we did with the white?
Yep.
Pretty much.
Just barely touching that.
And my paper towel's running away.
Yeah, you have to hold it down when you blow it. Okay, about done with that? Ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. A dark, shady bottom to a cloud is the key to an angry-looking storm cloud. Now, make sure whenever you're blowing your excess dust off of your paper, you hold onto your paper towels and everything, because everything starts flying off the table.
Like
now,
what happened to mine.
I know. So, don't want to run our paper towels down, chasing after those. We want to be able to draw. So now, go ahead and grab that super light blue again. And we're going to go ahead and start coloring the rest of the sky. So you can see we've got the gray portion over here colored in. We're going to start coloring in from the blue outline of those furthest clouds. We're going to try to leave this cloud inside it, mostly white. We can always drag some color through it if we want to make it look even more wispy, but we can do that at the end, okay? Mm-hmm. So.
When we sign our names, possibly.
Yep. So now, we're going to go ahead and just going to color in right along the edge of those clouds, give ourselves some extra color right there, and then fill in the rest of the sky. So remember, leave some space right around the moon, right around the sun. I'm going to leave that line, that area around the sun, light. Okay guys, as you're using this, make sure, do like you did with this blue on the opposite side of the arc, where you draw that little line of the horizon out to the edge of the paper, and make sure, remember, leave that area around the sun white. So you might even just draw a broad circle out past the sun, so that you can make sure to remember, okay, don't color inside of that. And you can go ahead and you can outline the edge of the arc with your pastel. And the reason that we're doing so much outlining here is because it's just so much easier to not have to go and lay color in.
That, and we don't want it to disappear.
Well, it's so much easier to just put color onto white than to try to cover up a dark color with a light pastel. Now when you start to blend your sky, remember, make sure your fingertips are clean, that you don't have a bunch of dark gray on there, or you're going to start to have some gray mixed into your blue sky. And right up against where you've outlined your clouds, if you want to make sure you don't get blue over onto your nice crisp edge of your cloud, just make sure that you use your Q-tip or your tissue paper. Okay, so we've been coloring a picture of a boat, and you're like wondering, okay, are we ever going to color the boat? Yes, we're going to do that right now. So, go ahead and make sure again that your fingers are clean, and if again, you get color on your paper somewhere where you don't want it, it's okay. We'll work to fix that, okay? Pastels are pretty forgiving because you can always lay some color over top of those mistakes. So now, on our on our colors over here, let's go and let's grab this. Like when you got these bright yellows, go a couple over from those to this guy right here. And we're going to go ahead and grab him. We're going to start to color in our ark. So again, outlining, okay, because we don't want to color into the water with this color. We don't want to color into the sky with this color. So let's go ahead and get that rough outline in there, all the way down and around.
I'm glad pastels are forgiving.
Yep, it's the way that we should be, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Now, if you start to get the edge of your pastel where it's making a really big mark, it's probably because you've worn that edge down. So start looking around on your pastel for like a corner, because then when you can find a corner, you can make nice fine lines again. So that'll help you a little bit. Okay, ready to go? Mm-hmm. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start coloring this whole thing in. I'm going to actually outline most of the lines on it. Alrighty, so now we're going to start coloring it in, okay? You don't have to bear down really hard with your pastel, especially on places where it's just plain paper. There's no pastel already there. So you just barely bear down a little bit and the pastel will do the work for you, okay? So just start to color it in like a crayon, because now we're at the place where it's kind of detailed work, so you can't necessarily color in a whole bunch with it laying on its side. Just coloring it nice and light and easy, just like it's a crayon. Being careful when you get to the edges. If you get color where you're not supposed to have it, it's okay. You can fix it in a minute. We're coloring side to side, and we're kind of trying to follow the line of the arc. And around the front of the edge of the arc, you see how it's kind of curved along the bottom? That spot, we're going to kind of color it in with curved lines. Now we're going to go ahead and start blending, and we're going to use our Q-tips this time because we've got a point for this. We're going to kind of mark in the same direction that we were coloring in line with the arc. So side to side, going up and down the side of the arc and along that big bow fin, and with a little bit of a curve right there where it's around the front edge of the arc where there's a curve at the bottom. So just going back and forth, back and forth. See how I'm doing this, Kate? Mm-hmm. And that way it kind of looks like the direction that boards would go. That front edge of that big bow fin, you can actually go straight up and down with it though, because that's how that edge is. Just back and forth, like you're following the direction of the boards. Now don't get ahead of us. In a second we're going to do the water, but there's something special about the water that we're going to do here in a minute. Alrighty, now I left part of my arc uncolored, the little triangle that's under the big bow fin, and then the roof of the arc. I'm going to still use the same color, but I just wanted to point out to you that I'm going to also add in some darker colors, like a grayish color, a brownish color, just to show that that's the roof, and that it's also kind of another angle on the boat, so that way you can see, okay, the light's not hitting it the same way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the color the same way, okay? I'm going to color it in, just throwing it in lines like that. But then I'm going to add in just a little bit of gray. I'm just going to mix the gray in on top of it, just a little bit, just some lines. And blend it with my Q-tip. Just barely touching the paper, because I don't want to pull my color up off the page. If your gray or your yellow goes all the way away, it's okay. Just add some more on top of it. We're going to do the same thing with our roof. I'm going to kind of mark down in the direction of my roof though, the angle of the roof. But you can mark it straight down or straight out too. I'm going to add a little bit of that gray back in there, and in a second a little bit of brown too. Okay, and then we're going to take our Q-tip and we're going to start to blend that down. Marking again in line with the way the materials on the arc are going. So think about how a roof runs. A roof runs down. So we're going to mark in the same direction as that.
Kind of weird to see a roof sideways.
Yep, looking at it from an angle. Now I want to get this color of brown right here, okay? And I'm going to use it underneath the edge of my roof, just so I can see that that part is under it is a shadow. And it's really reddish brown, so I'm probably going to add some yellow back over top of that to kind of blend it together. It's like where the roof is hanging over.
Like where you'd
And
have a
there's a
gutter
shadow.
on a house.
Yep. And I'm just going to barely blend that, I think. I like the look of that. It is. All right.
Mine's like it's already blended for me.
Nice. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a little bit more wood look to our boats. So let's go ahead and let's grab on the pastels, I'm going to grab this kind of this light orangey brown, actually the same color we used for our shaded area just now. And we're going to barely go over our whole arc side to side. And look how I'm doing this. Just almost striped. And look right here again, I'm curving it right here around the front edge of the arc. And then back here, I'm going to just draw straight lines. And if you need to, again, keep turning your pastel to find those corners so you can get the lines you're looking for. All right, and now we're going to take our Q-tips and we're going to just mark in the lines, just like we did earlier whenever we were blending it in. Don't go back and forth a whole bunch. We're just marking here and there, just pulling it all in one direction. We're not scrubbing with it. We're just going brush, 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 brush. And what that's doing is that's kind of smoothing out a little bit, but not a lot. And that way it looks like different boards, you know, different kind, like maybe one board was darker than another when it went on. It doesn't look so flat. Now we need to add one more thing to our door, and if you colored straight over your door, that's totally okay, because if you look closely, you can probably still see the pencil outline to your door. Let's grab a dark brown, and we're going to just add just a line of color to the right side of the door and the bottom. So it's going to look like a backwards L, and that's all you're going to do. Just a mark down and over. And now it just looks like there's just a little bit of shadow that's right there where the door is just kind of recessed in a little bit. Okay, done that part? All right, so we're almost done. The arc is not flying in midair, it's in the ocean, so now it's time to do the water. But here's the thing, when you look in water, you might see stuff swirling around in there, you might see fish in there, that kind of thing, that you might see a person swimming in the water. But when you look at water, what do you see?
A wavy reflection.
That's it, you see a reflection. So we're going to actually make a reflection of the sky, but also the arc. And so before we do the whole area of water, we're going to start with the flipped reflection of the ark. So grab that yellow that you started with, okay? And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to draw, start at the back of the ark and draw just straight down, like you're just going to flip the ark upside down. You're going to just kind of draw about the same length as the ark is tall. And you're going to just run it down the edge, just like this. And that's going to actually just go ahead and just kind of disappear down to the edge of your tape. Then at the bow, the front of the ark, you're going to draw that one, and you can kind of curve it on out. You can see how it kind of curves back out like that. Now we're going to color that space in. Okay, so let's just go ahead and color that in. Now before we blend, we're actually going to leave that for a second and we're going to go ahead and start on the water. So on this right side, we're going to start with the gray sky. Now make sure, again, keep checking, making sure that your fingers are clean, because if you start to blend that yellow into gray here in a minute, it's going to look a little funny. You might just rely on your Q-tips. Okay. Now we're going to take our gray.
You have a little yellow on it.
Oh, thank you. And so we're going to take our gray. We're going to go ahead and start to fill that space in. And maybe try to leave a few uncolored areas to be those little white spots swirling, but if you don't, it's okay. And now, same as the sky, we're going to take our Q-tips and we're going to go sideways. Brush, 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 brush. Okay, let's go ahead and grab another Q-tip and let's blend in the arc. And we're going to go sideways on it as well. And see how it gives it really just a hazy, fuzzy look.
Like what you'd see in water.
That's it. It's a reflection. And you can even make the edge of your arc a little more wavy if you want. And blend that into your gray just a little bit, just barely, to give that hazy outline effect. All right, time for the blue portion of the sky. Let's grab our light blue again. And we're going to remember to leave in some white on this side for those clouds again. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to kind of add in my cloud just to stay there. And then I'm going to go ahead and color in. All the way up to the tape. And then take your Q-tips and blend that in. Remember, going side to side again. Alrighty. Now, before we do our sun, let's just add in a few white lines, just little wavy lines here and there on the water. It's going to show where the light's reflecting off of it. Just a few here and there. All right, last thing we've got to do now is just add in our color for our sun. And we're going to use that same really light yellow for the ark. We might even go one over to this one right here because we just want just a hint of yellow. So go ahead and color in your sun. And then just in places, almost making like you're drawing a circle around it, but not, it's kind of a broken circle. Just like a swirl.
Sorry.
It's okay. Right around the edge of your sun. You see how that makes it look like it's waves of sunlight?
Sunbeams, basically.
That's it. All right, now whenever you're done adding in your sunbeams and coloring in your sun completely, just grab a Q-tip and just barely blend it in, just a little bit, okay? Especially on the sunbeams or they'll totally disappear, okay? So just color those in a little bit. Blend in just a little. And when you're done with that, that's it. Thank you guys for joining us on this episode of Craft Me a Story. Just so you know, the next one in December, it's actually going to be a live Craft Me a Story. We're going to do it here on campus at church on December 16th. Okay? So you can find out more details on that on the Mount Pleasant Facebook page. Hope we see you there.
Bye.
The ark drifted across judgment to salvation, carrying 8 believers to safety, and giving us a beautiful preview of Jesus' work on the cross. His broken body bridged the gap from punishment to peace, and just as Noah pleaded with the world to believe God and get on the boat, Jesus pleads with us to see the coming judgment for sin and to place our faith in Him for salvation.